Hi everyone, welcome back to Law School Gems with Bria. My name is Bria Riley and I'm the founder of Law School Gems, and today we are getting into part one of interview prep. So things like researching the employer, researching the interview panel and where they went to school or what shared interests you guys have. That type of prep is what you're going to need to set you apart and give you that competitive edge over your competition when interviewing for your dream internship or job opportunity. Now, before we dive in, I just wanted to affirm you, right? So make sure that you are complimenting yourself, make sure that you are giving that compliment to others as well, and affirming others. Go out there and be kind today, say something nice to someone. You never know how that can impact them, and I hope someone is saying something nice to you and that is impacting you positively today, and that you believe in yourself and you know that you were here for a reason. And I'm so glad that you are. A little bit about me, for those of you who do not know or may be new to the channel, I am Director of Corporate Counsel for the Marketing, Advertising, Intellectual Property, and Regulatory Group for a publicly traded company here in Dallas, Texas. And I'm so glad that you are here. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you are here with me today. So thank you for that. Without further ado, let's dive right on in.
We are born to win. Come and learn the basics with Law School Gems.
So make sure that you are researching your interviewer. Now, how do you go about doing that? Well, first of all, Google is your best friend and so is LinkedIn, right? So try to drum up some type of information that you can use to connect with your interviewer during the interview. So this might be where they went to school, where they're from, what past employers have they worked for? Do you guys have any shared interests or passions? What civic organizations do they volunteer for? What are their passions and their interests? And are there any interceptions? That is what you were looking for, where they intersect and how those intersections can help breed mutual connection between you and your interviewer. So that way you are a more memorable candidate. Also be sure to research the role that you are interviewing for, right? So hone in on keywords or the job description, and you need to know that job description like the back of your hand, the same way you would your resume, right? So you need to know what the job description is going to require of you, what responsibilities are going to be required, and have prepared answers that specifically address those responsibilities or those tasks within the job description, because that's what the employer is looking for you to speak to. How can you help them confront and meet and surpass the challenges that they have now? And how can you help be a valuable asset or contributor to the team and the role that they are going to need you to play? Hone in on responsibilities that you have an interest in, right? Or some that you have experience in, or maybe you want to get to know more about or learn more about, or maybe you've never confronted that before, but you find it interesting. Be sure to speak to those, because that's also going to set you apart from your competition, and you're going to dive beneath the surface of what just presents itself from the job description and really show that you can address an issue, confront a challenge, but then also you have deep vested interest in what they are looking for and how you can go about helping them achieve their goals for their professional organization. And you can also speak to someone in a similar industry holding a similar role for which you are applying to get some further insight and to kind of help break through for your interview, right? And help prepare you for that. So you want to make sure that you're speaking to someone who's like a lateral with respect to the position you're applying for, so that way they can tell you how you might better prepare for the interview or how you might better prepare for the role. Specifically, if there's some type of action item that's going to be required of you during the interview. Maybe you're going to have to take a test, or maybe you're going to have to do some type of case study. It's good to know how to prepare for those things and what the employer may or may not be looking for. And the way to gather that information is through your connections of someone who is in a similar role within a similar industry, or maybe they're at the company or the organization or entity or firm or public sector entity that you are applying for right now, and they can give you better insight. Next up, you want to be sure to research the employer. So research the employer's goals, right? And it's good, especially if they're a publicly traded company, if you can look at some of their previous yearly reports. So publicly traded company, they have to reduce like proxy statements or reports, annual reports per SEC regulations that speaks to what challenges they faced, what their results were, what the goals were, what they're looking for toward the future, all of those things. So if you can get your hand on something like that, that's very invaluable knowledge, and it can let you know where the company is currently, where it's trying to go, and how you can help help them get there, so you could speak to that during the interview process. Also, figure out who the leadership team consists of at the organization in which you are applying. If there are any new pieces or articles or written publication about the company or the organization in which you are applying, be sure to educate yourself on those. Be sure to research that information so you can capitalize on it, right? You want to bring up that information in the interview to show that you dug beneath the surface and that you didn't just do the typical research that would be expected of you, but you actually went and read more about this company. You're showing a vested interest. You are showing that you are dedicated and that you're already doing your research for the role in order to prepare you to step into it. But I caution you, do not bring up these written articles or publications if they are in a negative light or connotation, because that's not fun or necessarily positive to speak about during your interview. And you want to keep the interview on a positive trajectory so that way the interviewer can associate you with positivity and remember you as such. Now, if there is some negative press out there about the organization or the company in which you are applying, and you really do have a genuine curiosity for it, especially if it can impact your role and it's relevant to your role, that is key. If whatever is out there is relevant to your role, the way to couch that question in an interview is to say, hey, I read this article on this website and it talked about or discussed some challenges that you all are facing as a company. And I wonder how those challenges might impact me in my position. Can you speak to that, or what actionable steps the company is taking to address that? And that's how you couch it in a way where it's not giving a positive spin necessarily, but it's not speaking about it negatively, but you also are coming from a place of genuine curiosity and you're going to get the answer to your question. And researching the company or organization, you may also find out that you know someone who works there and you can connect with them again to gain that invaluable insight. Also, be sure to look up that company's mission statement, their About Me section, right? Or their About. Look up all the services that they provide in the different practice areas that they have out there for their consumer or their clientele, depending on what industry you're in. But just look up what they're about. Look up their founding principles, what they were founded upon, when they were founded, what's important to them. Look up their big wins and be prepared to talk about those. Look up their values or other upcoming projects. And you might also figure out that company or that organization's subject matter expertise and how they are trending in the industry, right? So how they are leading in that, and you could speak to that in the interview as well. Next up, you want to prepare 3 to 5 interview questions that you are anticipating asking the employer during your interview process. And what does that do? It shows that you have a genuine interest in the role. It shows that, again, you've dug beneath the surface, and it shows that you were well researched and that there's a dog in the fight for you as well with respect to this opportunity, and you're interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And that really shows something about you as a leader, and that's what every employer is looking for. So make sure that the questions are appropriate. Make sure that they are well researched. Make sure that they are intricate, that they are detailed. You don't want them to be overly complex, but you also don't want them to be very simplistic to where you could have found the answer on Google and that wasn't really appropriate for an interview question. You also want to make sure that the questions are relevant, and do not ask questions about salary. This is not the time to negotiate or to ask questions about salary, because then it could look like you have an ulterior motive and are only interested in the salary component or the compensation as opposed to the role. So employers are going to hire you based on your interest in the role, whether they like you, your resume, and your qualifications, etc. Once you get the job offer, then we talk about salary negotiations and questions about salary. But until you get invited to that point, right, and you get the job offer, don't bring up salary questions during the interview unless you are approached with them. So if someone says, what are your salary expectations? You better damn well know your number. Going into that interview, you need to make sure you know and you've done your research about salary requirements and what is typical or reasonable for that industry, that practice area, that group, that organization, for the number of employees that they have, what one can expect, and that you have a range of compensation in which you would be comfortable with prior to the interview, so you could be prepared to speak to that as well. Also, questions that I always ask as a part of my interview when I'm going through the interviewing process are these. So I'm giving you some of my best tips now, so y'all better take these. But I always ask the employer if they could fast forward 6 months from now, what would have needed to occur for them to feel like they selected the best candidate 6 months down the line. And what that does is it gives you insight into what the employer is really looking for, what they're going to expect of you, what responsibilities you're really going to be facing and confronting. And that helps give you better insight into what this role really entails, so you can make an informed decision about whether this is an opportunity you want. Any questions that will help you discern whether this is the right organization for you, because it's not worth sacrificing your mental health or your emotional stability to work for a place where you're going to be miserable. So any questions where you can actually get to the root or the crux or the nuts and bolts of what that company is about or that organization is about, ask those questions, but do it in an appropriate fashion. And if you need help on how to craft a question because you want to ask it, but you don't know exactly how to ask it, feel free to drop some comments below about that and I will respond to them. Also, be sure to ask for the job. A lot of times candidates get in interviews and they don't ask for what they want. And what you really want is the job opportunity. So you want to say, thank you for this interview opportunity once you get to the end of the interview or toward the end. And then you want to ask them, what are the next steps? Like, I would love to work with your company and within this certain team. This is how I think I could be of value or of interest to you all. Please let me know how I can advance my candidacy. If there's anything else that I can provide to you all, or if there's anything that I have been unclear about or that you need clarity on now, please feel free to ask me. And I look forward to working with you all in the future and what the next steps look like, and ask about those next steps. So that way you're not left waiting and you're not left without any answers or not knowing where the candidacy process is going next. You might also ask the employer, specifically if you don't get the interview, but sometimes even during the interview, right? And it shows introspection on how you did in the interview. Like, how did you interview? How did you perform? Were there areas that you can improve? Were there areas you did great? Were there areas of strength that you should continue? You want to know that information as well. Ask them about the company culture. Ask them about work-life balance. Ask them about how the work will be disseminated. Ask them about performance and the metrics upon which you will be judged or critiqued in order for you to meet your performance evaluations. Ask how often those happen. Ask about particular business goals for the team. And if there's anything that you were unclear about or need clarity on with respect to the job opportunity, the task or role or responsibilities in which you'll function, get clarity on that during the interview. That's the time to really ask those clarifying questions. And if you forget to ask them, you can always follow up in a nice kind note back to the recruiter or the hiring manager that you've been in touch with about the role as well. Next up, we're going to talk about preparing for those interview questions, those pesky interview questions that we know will likely come up that you have to have a prepared answer for. So again, you want to practice how you want to play. And even though interviewing can be very scary, it's good to know in advance what you can expect and try to anticipate it. And sometimes you might even reach out to the employer and say, hey, are there any particular areas of interest that will be questioned or that I'll be expected to speak to or know about when it comes to preparing for my interview? And you can ask those questions to your recruiter or your HR business partner or whomever you're working with, because they're going to be your advocate, right? It helps them when you get the role that they've selected a good candidate for that opportunity and that candidate actually advanced to the offer stage and then beyond, right? So be sure to ask them those questions. If you're not comfortable, just look up some commonly asked questions for interviews for the industry in which you are applying, for similar roles in which you are applying as well. You want to be sure to prepare model answers for those words, right? And to catch yourself when you stumble, to make sure that you're breathing and that you're pausing and you're speaking clearly and coherently and you're not rushing through your words and being all jumbled up because you're scared or you're nervous. You want to be audible because you want them to remember you, and they can't remember you if you're shaking and trembling and you can't get your words out and you're using a lot of ums and a lot of fillers and a lot of likes. You want to be able to effectively communicate your point in a way that shows that you are competent, you are capable, you are confident. And even though you might be a little bit nervous, you've really prepared for this interview. And a great way to do that is a mock interview, if you can, with someone that you trust, who can ask you some anticipated interview questions, whether that be your career services advisor, whether that be a trusted mentor or advisor, a friend or family member, someone who can say, hey, this is where you can improve. Again, here are your strengths, and these are areas that you should confront for challenges for when facing your interview, right? Some things that I like to do is record myself audibly. So I'll go through, after I've done a mock interview or two, I'll go through and I'll record model answers to questions that I can anticipate. And then I'll play that back in my ear. So number one, I'm committing those answers to memory. And then number two, I'm catching my tics. Did I say a lot? Did I say like a lot? Am I using filler words? Am I rambling? Am I not getting to the point? Am I addressing the question? Am I speaking too fast? Am I speaking coherently? Am I speaking too slowly? Did I forget to pause? Did I forget to breathe? All of those things can be captured if you record your model answers prior to entering the interview. You can also record yourself visually, right? So stand in the mirror and watch your tics. Do you speak with your hands a lot? Do you fiddle with your hair a lot? Like things that we do when we're in nervous environments, you can try to mitigate those as much as possible in order to prepare you for your interview. And it really gives you a picture of how you might respond, how you might act, and ways to get ahead of that, so that way you're not nervous. You can get all the nerves out of the way, you can get all the mistakes out of the way, and you can go into that interview knowing that you are about to crush it. Lastly, be sure to build skeletons of hot topic answers or questions that you know will likely come up, right? So for instance, say if you got a poor grade in a course and you know that that may be something an employer asks you about, right? You want to get ahead of that. So you want to prepare a roadmap for that answer. So even if you can't remember what you rehearsed, or what answer you recorded yourself going through, or what answer you gave during your mock interview, you know the highlights of what you want to say, and you're going to hit them because you built a skeleton or a roadmap for that particular answer, and you know what all you need to say and what all you want to say in order to convey your point effectively. So these are all the tips that I have for you today on the first part of interview prep, and I so thank you for being here. I know you could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here with me. For all of my returning gems, lean in, bring it in. I'm so happy to have you back. And for any of you that are new, please feel free to like and share this video with someone who may benefit from it, whether that be a first semester law student, someone interested in law school, or someone further along in their law school career. And then finally, subscribe to the channel, right? So that way we can continue to grow it to reach larger audiences like you, but more importantly, so you can get notifications for when I post these videos so you are not missing your gems. And I will see you guys next time when we speak about interview prep part 2. Until then, take care and stay safe. Bye, guys.